Trailers are a fascinating narrative form because they have to tell a story in 2 or 3 minutes using pieces from a bigger story. I want to look at the trailer from Project Hail Mary, the first one, and do a narrative analysis on it to understand what storytelling lessons we can extract from the Project Hail Mary trailer. And then we're going to talk about, what do we want from trailers? Is it good that they give things away? Is it bad? What are the pluses and minuses? What can we learn? How does it set up your expectations for a movie? And how much do your expectations really affect your experience of it? And we can kind of compare trailer 1 to trailer 3 because they set up potentially different movies, which we talk a little bit about over on our podcast. So I'm going to start there. Shall we?
Sounds great.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Okay. So I have transcribed the trailer for Project Hail Mary into screenplay format so that it is familiar for everyone. And I have identified 4 big sections. It has its own story structure, essentially. So we have a first act, a second act, a third act, and then there's sort of this fourth act button that a lot of trailers have.
One more
that we
thing.
can talk about. Exactly. One more thing. And so to zoom in, let's just start with a little taste of the beginning of how do you start a trailer? What's the cold open?
Please state your name.
Ryland Grace. I just woke up from a coma. I'm several light years from my apartment. And I'm not an astronaut.
All right. So we have these very first lines. And these are doing basic character setup stuff very, very quickly. So we're dropped into the middle of a problem. I'm several light years from, my apartment. That's not a highlighter. And I'm not an astronaut. So this is very much going for that cold open hook, throw you right into it and make you go, what's going on? What's the situation? And then the trailer will go straight into the stakes, basically. So he's really establishing, I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut.
I'm not an astronaut. I'm not an astronaut.
If you don't go, you die. With the rest of us.
It's a great
So
hook.
Great hook.
There is a tonal thing here that I want to talk about with these trailers, which is drama versus comedy. And this trailer especially feels very dramatic, but that's our first little glimpse is the Ryan Gosling performance of I'm not an astronaut, I'm banging on the table. And then that's followed up with, if you don't go, we die, right? And it's interesting to see when there are moments of kind of humor in this trailer. It feels sometimes like they're really disparate. And then that's a moment where it's kind of funny, and then it gets serious again, which I like as a kind of breakneck tonal shift there. By design, right? Because that's by design in the movie too.
And
Yeah.
I think that also, you're mentioning it as a comedic shift or a definite tonal sort of and also this is going to be funny and have some jokes. This is also the first shot in the trailer that's not on the spaceship, right? So it's setting up the dual timelines a little bit here right at the outset, where we're going to be with
Right.
these other characters. It sets up the Sandra Hüller character, whose name is Straught. And then it's kind of giving us the two sides of what the movie is, two sides of the coin of what the movie is, in some ways. And it provides that little moment of laugh, reprieve before it goes into another dramatic bois.
Right.
Dramatic bois.
Dramatic bois. Trailers are really great they help you follow the structure because they usually put dramatic bois or risers, and they'll have their music changes on those big structural changes. So
Yeah.
they hold your hand because they're very clear about the structure.
I'm somebody who likes trailers enough, and also am an editor, that I listen sometimes to trailer music, meaning music made by music houses to sell to Hollywood for trailers. And it's amazing how structured they are. They all follow these incredibly rigorous rules of essentially Michael's mapping it out here with this script. The music is also following the structure.
Where can I listen
yeah.
to trailer music, Alex?
There's a group, I think it's just like a production house called Audio Machine. They put all their music out in Spotify, and their music is in many trailers. And so you can just like listen to trailer music if you want to.
Do you do this like a lot, or?
It sometimes when I want to get inspired and think about like, you know,
The answer is yes. I
The
know
answer is
Alex.
yes.
That's
The answer is
amazing. I
yes.
love that.
Yeah. They should call it Ad Spotify. Never mind. Move on.
No.
Yeah, so trailers are very, very structured because they have to tell the story very quickly, but they're following the same rules that any storyteller would want to do. So, like in a normal movie, you need to hook the audience, you need to get buy-in with your act one. There's lots of different strategies. Trailer 3 does it differently. Maybe we'll look at that later. But once we have the hook, so we've set up this basic thing. He's not an astronaut. He's several light years in space. If you don't go, everyone's going to die. Huh? Okay, so then we can smash the titles, kind of change our tone here a little bit, and then we're entering the setup phase. And so part of what a trailer has to do and a story has to do is sort of teach you the premise, teach the audience, what am I looking at? What am I paying attention to? What is the story that you're trying to tell me? And so this trailer begins with the problem. So we have some voiceover from Grace and Eva. I think I might have put the wrong name there. But, she's saying, you're the only scientist who might know what this thing is. The sun is dying. I need you to come with us. So we're very quickly showing the problem in this world is that the sun is dying. Okay, interesting. We get introduced to Project Hail Mary. So we're showing, I need you to come with us. We got like tankers and cars and a room full of scientists. And so we're sort of getting like, okay, the stakes and the scale of all this thing.
Which we have
Again-
more over the refusal of the call there, because we have that a few
Yeah.
times in this trailer. Like, I'm not an astronaut. I'm just a school teacher, which is what we skipped over right there before getting into Project Hail Mary. Because this trailer really leans into something. So we talked about on the podcast, we don't learn until very late in the movie, but the trailer really leans into, I don't want to do this. This isn't for me. And then sort of we have like a later acceptance.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. He says, I'm just a teacher. We get to see him there. It's, again, teaching us about this character, the protagonist, and sort of introducing the premise of, okay, we understand what he means now when he says he's not an astronaut. And so we get this problem. The sun is dying. We're seeing rooms full of scientists. Every star is infected by this. And it's like, okay, we get this is the problem. And then we go into a plan. So she starts saying, okay, this is why we built a spaceship to go out there and find it. And then we're also introducing the stakes. So it's 11.9 light years away. The astronauts, they're going to die in space. It's what Americans would call a long shot. And so it's all building up to, we've gotten lots of exposition. We now understand there's a problem. Here's what's at stake. Someone needs to go out there. And this section ends on kind of returning to this conflict that we established a little bit at the beginning, which is like, I'm not an astronaut. But here we're getting the clarification that it's like, no, you have to go.
If we do nothing, everything on this planet will go extinct.
Stakes.
You'll find a solution.
You are my solution.
I put the not an astronaut. I've never done anything. I've never done a spacewalk. I can't even moonwalk.
And then we're
Midpoint.
gonna-
Midpoint.
Midpoint.
Trailers are all about
Drink.
midpoints. Like we talk about midpoints being important in movies. Trailers like live or die on their midpoints, truly. And once again, thinking about musically, this is where we're shifting into like a cover song, or not a cover song, actually, the original song,
But
Sign of the Times.
zhuzhed up. Yeah.
I really think this is so interesting comparing this to the movie, because we were talking about in our Project Hail Mary podcast, wouldn't it have been interesting if the midpoint of the movie was essentially this scene
What is that
where
moment?
he
Yeah.
truly, fails. If we're talking about a character with a flaw who needs to learn, grow, change, this is the ultimate him not changing. He is saying, no, I will not go. I am not the person who goes. I'm not the person who's brave, who does this selfless thing to save humanity. I am going to be a coward and stay. And it's really interesting that the trailer puts it at the midpoint.
Yeah.
Which is where I think it should go in the movie. But the other really interesting thing about the way that this trailer is structured is that almost, except for that little hook at the beginning, almost all of the first half of the trailer is this Earthbound storyline, where he's, talking to Strahd and they're training for the mission. Here's all the other people, the astronauts. We see the satellite dishes, and then the lab explodes, and he's on the ship. All of these locales, and I would say by comparison to the runtime in the movie, it's definitely not half the movie. It's way less than half the movie. It's probably only a third of the movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so what they're doing is prioritizing the expository work before the mission and also the character work. So we're getting all of the exposition that we need to understand the plot, but we're also getting the work that we need to understand the character and why we would care about this guy going to space. In other words, this trailer is structured almost as though the character arc is the most important thing in the movie.
Right.
However, so much of the movie is not about that, and that's so fascinating to me. But anyway, we've just hit the midpoint of the trailer, and let's see what the second half looks like.
Yeah. So then we launch into Act 3, so it's going to be the music's like blaring, there's this escalation, and it's the journey. We see it cuts to like him being like, "Oh my God," to blast off, right? And so we're now blasting off. And this section of trailers is, in some ways, it's like giving you a taste of the movie. Like, I sort of think about it psychologically as if I'm sitting in the movie theater and I'm like, okay, I'm interested, but like, what am I going to get if I really go to this movie? And the trailer's like, well, here's a little bit of what you might get. And so it's, showing us cool visuals. It's telling a little bit of like what that arc will be. It's setting tone. It's suggesting an arc. We have lines here where again we come back to this like Grace, doesn't think he's brave. He has a line. What is it like? Some people just aren't good at things, and we get to see Carl for a second. Tell him that like it'll be fine. Where is that?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it's this
like,
feeling like
I
he's
like that
really
line.
going to be struggling with his like inabilities, and he's gonna cry and stuff. Like it really feels like that. This is going to be a really dramatic movie. Is the feeling I get from this part of the trailer.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, and what's interesting is, all these lines, I believe, are in the movie, or most
Sure.
of them made it into the final cut. But they're all spread out. They're all spread out over a long runtime. Whereas when they're all kind of condensed together into a tight package, it has a different feeling. It feels like, wow, this movie's really about this guy who doesn't believe in himself, doesn't believe he's the one for this job, like overcoming that feeling. And ultimately that is what happens in the movie. But I think once again, these beats are so spread out over so much time, you don't have the impact that you're getting from this trailer.
Yep.
Yeah. Yeah. Just to play that section.
This might be very hard for you to understand, but some people are not good at things.
You know who you are. You're gonna do great.
I conquered Zero G in 5 hours.
I don't think that line's in there, but the
That's
rest of
that's
it,
not the movie. Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and like the music with the hitting, it's punctuating the beats, like you're saying, like we're seeing him cry. It's sort of telling you, audience, like this is the journey you're going to go on with this character. And because it had this great setup and this great hook, we understand why it's going to be emotional. And this trailer's just really, really good.
Yeah.
And so that drives through to a kind of final hook, except it ends up not being the final hook. But we're building. We have a little arc where he's like doubting, and then he's conquered Zero G, and it's like uplifting. And then we get to cut to black, and like something ominous is going to happen.
Object approaching.
Oh my God.
Build.
Just
And we have
stop
that
there.
great stinger, or what could have been a stinger. And so this is where
Yeah.
I think it's really interesting because I, watching this trailer the first time, thought that's it. That's the ending. Like you sold me on here's what the journey's going to be, and there's going to be something more. That's like, I am now sold. But the trailer goes on, Brian.
Right. Also, the trailers go on because there are more. Like I don't know how it was back in the day, but I feel like it used to be you got the one trailer that did what it did, and that was all you had, basically. Maybe there would be like a Super Bowl ad that was like, here's 5 more seconds of movie, but that's all you get. Now it's like every trailer that comes out is like, here's more movie, here's more movie. But yeah, going back to the tonal thing, you know, my takeaway from watching this trailer, prepping for this trailer feels like a drama with some comedy in it, and it
Yeah.
feels like the movie we got is a comedy that will get very serious and get very dramatic and is a big sweeping sci-fi kind of epic, but is sort of at its heart a comedy. And the moment earlier I called out where there's these little bits of humor feel like it's s- going back and forth, whereas what we're setting up here is we're about to go into something that feels very dramatically, I won't say dramatically, that's confusing, very notably different from the tone of what we just saw, the big buildup and everything. I agree. I want to see some weird little hand on a window and then like cut to black. And maybe that's all we ever get until we're in the theater, right? But as you are setting up, that is not that's not what this trailer is about to do.
Yeah. So to just round it out here, we have this scream, and then he sits down and he says,
So I met an alien.
and so tonal shift again,
Yeah.
where it's kind of undercutting whatever the fear suspense buildup is there. And we have some, jokey joke things. We see him like touching his, and then we go into another montage of like happy and pretty colors, and the music goes bum 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 bum, and then we get to like the titles again. And so this is a long trailer, and it's not over either. It has the button that every trailer must have of like, oh, and there's one more joke at the end. Or if it's a horror movie, it's like, oh, there's one more jump scare at the end to kind of reinforce the sort of genre and tone you're sort of doing this tag. And so it's just interesting that this is a long trailer, and I guess we can now talk about, do we think we like that it goes all the way to showing Rocky and showing this sort of, thumbs down, goofy relationship thing that's happening here? Because that is, as we've said, part of the movie, and an important part of the tone of the movie. Is it good that it's in this trailer?
In some ways, especially after kind of seeing your reaction to the movie, Michael, knowing nothing about anything, I think maybe it is good that this is in the trailer, because this trailer would be incredibly misleading if it didn't have just this hint of what the relationship with Rocky was going to be like. So I don't know. Part of me, as a book reader, was thinking, no. The best trailer for this movie is that you don't know anything about Rocky or aliens or anything. Like, just cut it off, even before the ship appears, cut it off. Because it was such a great surprise in the book to get to that moment. After thinking it was going to be just, another Martian, another guy alone in space surviving story. However, because the movie does have this lighthearted tone, does become almost like a Pixar movie once Rocky's in the picture. Maybe you do need this for expectation setting.
Yeah, it's interesting because, at least for me, I saw this trailer, but I did not see any subsequent trailers. And I feel like even though Rocky is in this trailer, like more than I even remembered, I still didn't feel like he was necessarily spoiled for me. At least not until Vince spoiled him later by telling me that he was a big part of the movie. But
Vince, our producer.
but I think that because I was set up for this to be this dramatic character journey, like space, a guy's got to rise to the occasion to save the world. type of movie by the beginning of this trailer, that the importance of Rocky didn't announce itself to me, and like not the tone, not exactly what the relationship is, not really how it would interplay with the character arc either. Like, to me, this seemed to be like possibly a long extended sequence in the second act where he's going to like meet another being. Or that, again, it felt like I took it at face value based on how much that was in the trailer, that he would be a smaller percentage of the movie than he is. So in that sense, it wasn't spoiled. Am I glad I knew something about there being like extraterrestrial life in this movie? Ultimately, I think yes. I do think it's a really tricky balance because we as audiences want to be surprised by movies, but we don't want to be too surprised. We don't want to feel like we were lied to or cheated. And I
Right.
think, to your point, Alex, we might have felt lied to or cheated if there had been no Rocky in this trailer whatsoever.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I absolutely agree with all of that. I do think what it robs the movie of is the sense of wonder that we get, right? Which is like, there's a ship next to me now. What's going on with the ship? What they're sending? It's sending me something. There's what 20 plus minutes in the movie from like the ship to I'm meeting Rocky, and the
Yeah.
trailer goes from thing on the glass to so I met an alien, he's gonna thumbs up or whatever, like thumbs down. And I feel like the unfortunate thing with specifically with that beat of the trailer is it doesn't let us kind of live in that wonder for at least a moment before then being like, we're also gonna have fun with this alien character. And it's also the trailer's already doing a whole lot, which is
Yeah.
why I would love for this trailer especially to not have the little PS at the end, goofy stuff, and to just let you linger for months potentially, because I don't remember when the second trailer came out, but for months of what the hell was that thing at the end of the trailer, right?
I
We'll
believe
tell
this
you in
one was
another
released in March 2025, or like
I was gonna
it
say
was a
this trailer
whole
It's
is
like
year.
long.
8 or 9 months between
Right.
trailers.
Wow.
Yeah.
The first and the last, yeah.
It's really tough because you think about when you're making a movie, usually you're not making it with the trailer in mind. Maybe some people are making shots with trailers in mind, but in general, if you're designing sequences or moments, you're generally making it with the understanding of somebody's watching this movie from start to finish, and within the context I've given them from the first half of this movie, I'm designing this sequence to hit in a certain way based on the information you have from within this movie. But when you come into a movie with so much marketing thrown at you, you've already seen so many of the money shots, you've seen so many of the special moments. But these moments weren't designed to have been pre-seen. I think about Dune Part 2. Even the first trailer for Dune Part 2 showed the big sandworm ride sequence, essentially. It showed Paul Atreides like getting on the sandworm, which is like one of the big moments of the movie. And I think back to like, oh, that would have been really cool to see with the buildup, with the tension of like,
It
wow, you're really
was.
going to do this. Yeah, Michael, you had that experience. But
Yeah.
I had seen it a bunch of times because I watched the first trailer and then it was in all subsequent trailers. And then it's just like, yeah, I don't think Denis Villeneuve designed that moment to have been seen 20 times before the movie. I think it was designed to be positioned in that moment in the movie with all that buildup.
Right.
And so I think it's what you're talking about here, Brian, which is that reading the book, and if I was watching the movie, totally blind, that would be an edge of your seat. I want to understand what's happening sequence when the ship's there and the things are being passed back and forth. But everybody who's seen the trailers knows it's all leading up to this. You're going to get an alien encounter.
Well, because I think being cheated works in both directions. If I don't get enough of an idea of the movie that I'm going into, then I'm going to feel cheated. But if I get too much, I'm also going to feel cheated,
Yeah.
right? I'm going to be like, here's this amazing cameo. Here's this da da da. Oh yeah, I know that because you told me everywhere, like that I couldn't get away from it because you wanted to get my butt in the seat, which is why you told me like this thing was going to happen and this thing was going to happen. But now my experience watching the movie is, well, now I've seen too much of it, right? So it's a really tricky balancing act there.
Definitely.
Yeah. I often stop watching trailers. So I will only watch a trailer if I am not sure if I'm going to see a movie. And then as soon as the trailer has convinced me I'm going to see it, I press stop.
Yep.
Or I close my eyes and plug my ears and make loud noises if I'm in a theater and annoy everyone.
It's great to
around
go to
me
the
as
movies.
if- yeah.
Now my partner does that.
Uh,
Like around the beginning of the year, we'll watch a bunch of trailers from the previous year's movies, and I'm like, I'm going to catch up on a bunch of these. Let me know what you want to watch. And usually about that like 1 minute mark, she'll be like, okay, stop it. Like, let's watch
Right.
another one. Yeah.
It's usually the midpoint. Usually the
Yeah,
point of the
yeah.
trailers where it's like, now we're really going to show you stuff. And
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
like,
yeah.
wait, I don't think I want to see that.
Right. The new Spider-Man trailer that played before this did that to me. Of like, what is the new Spider-Man about? What else is happening? Oh, okay, I'm interested. Oh, he's going to do something? Eyes closed.
Yeah.
So I feel like, that's my advice to people. And I think just to quickly bring in trailer 3 to kind of round out this conversation, we don't have to like watch or to go into it too deeply, but it also has 3 acts to it. It begins with a very quick version of the premise setup that we saw in the first trailer. So we get Grace saying, I think you think I'm right for this mission. I'm not. It goes straight to objects approaching. And then this like the tunnel happens. There's a little bit of, the doctor saying, if you don't do anything, we're all going to die. So like very high level stakes, person in space, world's counting on you. And then it goes straight into Act 2, which is introducing that the scary alien thing down the tunnel isn't scary at all. It's a cute rock and it's going to mimic you. And we're going to
Dance.
and so the whole of Act 2 in this trailer is about the relationship and building up this weird conflict. We get to see them find a voice for Rocky. We get to hear some of Grace's journals about he's in the same boat I am. We're trying to save this thing. And so this trailer's all focused on, like, the bulk of it is on the relationship between Grace and Rocky. And then Act 3, once we kind of get to, Rocky says, it is time go. Then we launch back into, and now they got to save the galaxy. And that kind of, does that Act 3 teasing the journey, upping the stakes, showing that other sort of part of the tone. But the focus of this is really on that relationship. And I think the focus of the movie is really on the relationship. This is like the emotional core of the movie. And as we were just saying, there was 8 or 9 months between the first trailer and this trailer. We know that the directors had a 4-hour cut of this movie at one point, and they were trying to figure out what the final version of the movie was. And so I think it's just interesting to think about what stage they were at when that first trailer was made and what it felt like the movie was about at that point. Whereas as we're getting to release date, as this third trailer's coming out, they know what the movie is now. And in some ways, I feel like this is a really good trailer for the movie, the final cut of the movie, and prepping you for what the premise is actually about.
A couple things quickly. I do want to say there is an intermediate trailer to this. There was one that was released in the first one that we just talked about was in spring 2025. There was a second trailer in fall 2025. And then there was this third trailer that I believe was only a month or 2 ago. And the second one is also interesting to dissect. It is kind of a medium between the two where there's more Rocky in it, but also it's a little bit leaning more into the Grace setup stuff. The tone is kind of in the middle between the two in some ways. And so I just think that that's really interesting. You can kind of see the marketing shift its focus. Now, part of that might be just because you're trying to hit different audiences with different trailers. So by making your trailers markedly different in their feeling, in their approach to selling you different versions of the movie, it makes sense for them to be different. I mean, trailers, having a teaser trailer and then multiple different versions of a trailer, I looked it up, Brian, because your comment made me curious. They really started to shift, actually, just even as back as far as the 1970s to like, we need to make more than one trailer for theatrical movies. I mean, it was the blockbuster era, right? It was Jaws. It was that like big, like we're going to, have these high budget, high concept movies we have to get people to the theater. So it makes sense to use what we have to market the movie to a variety of audiences to get as many people to come out to the theater as possible. And so what we're seeing here is not necessarily just being done for like creative vision reasons, right? There are very practical on the ground marketing reasons to sell different versions of a movie. I do think this is a really interesting case because again, it feels like they've traveled a long distance between trailer 1 and the final trailer here.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's worth calling out that trailers have multiple purposes too.
course.
Like releasing a trailer 8 or 9 months before the release date, you can't go buy a ticket at that point. The goal there is partially just mind share, getting people talking about it, like getting that into the cultural consciousness and then dipping back into that again with the second trailer, like you're talking about, Trisha. And then by the third one, when it's like tickets on sale now, like usually it's combined with that. And so each trailer is sort of doing a different purpose, but it's all part of that same pipeline to get people aware of this thing and excited. And that's also why trailers tend to get more spoilery as you get to the end, because like by the end, it's like whatever we need to do to sell the ticket, we're not going to do.
Absolutely.
So
we're going to show you all
like,
the shots.
Yeah.
All of the
Yeah.
shots will be in the trailer.
I love
Right,
the like
exactly.
post-release trailer too. Sometimes it'll be like the #1 movie in America. Everyone's
Mhm,
raving about
mhm.
it. It's got the
Yeah.
critic reviews and stuff. They're still selling you.
Yeah. And real quick, also the availability of trailers has changed over the
Yeah,
decades,
yeah,
right?
yeah.
It used to be
Right.
when you were in a movie theater, you saw a trailer, and that was it. So you might see a trailer once, maybe twice, and that was it. Then it was you might see it on TV, but you're seeing TV at spots. You're seeing 30-second spots. You're not seeing the full trailer. You only see that when you go to the big budget movie. Then around, late 90s, early 2000s, now it's available online. You can watch every single frame of this trailer and see everything. Now that's on you if you do that, but still we're going to do that, right?
Right.
But some people aren't. Some people are going to see it once. So that's the other tricky thing the trailers have to do is, if you watch the trailer 3 of Project Hail Mary, like it shows you the entire final like climactic scene of that movie, basically, including turning points that if you know the trailer well enough, you're going to know that turning point is coming. But, we're smart enough to not scrub through trailers to like spoil ourselves for the movie, right? But when it is some big IP that everyone loves and they're making a movie for the first time, people are, or like a video game adaptation, people are going to scrub through and they want to see every single thing. Also, studios know that, so it becomes a choice of how much do you put there, how much do you not, and who's your audience, what audience are you more interested or worried about, disappointing.
Yeah.
It's tricky. Yeah.
Yeah. For sure, they know that someone is going to look at every frame and
Mhm.
they make sure that every frame is exactly what they want to release.
Right.
It's kind of crazy. Cool. Well, I think we can end it there. I feel like, again, as a writing lesson, telling stories is hard, period. Telling stories in 2 minutes is really hard. And so there are a lot of really useful storytelling lessons that can come from breaking down trailers, seeing what parts they focus on, right? If you just want a condensed version of what does it take for someone to get invested in your story, think about what the trailer for your movie might be. What would you put in there and not put in there? That's useful information as you're writing as well to figure out what's working, what's worth highlighting and pulling back on. And it's just really fun. Like if you like editing, I probably don't need to tell you this. You're probably already doing it, but it's so much fun to analyze the editing and just the high, just pure like editing joy that can come from putting a trailer together. It's really, really fun.
And you can also listen to trailer music just in your free time.
Yes, you
Yep.
can. Yeah. It's really cool. We'd love to hear from you guys. What were your thoughts on this trailer? Like I'm on these trailers. I'm really fascinated to hear from people in the comments. Do you watch trailers? Do you avoid them? If you watched these, do you feel like it affected your experience? If you didn't, were you surprised by the movie? I feel like there was so much conversation in my social circle about do not watch the trailer. It'll really affect your viewing. Then I'm curious if other people hit that and what their experience was for there. And if you want to hear us talk more about Project Hail Mary, we have a whole podcast available on Spotify and here on YouTube. Thanks for watching, and we will see you in the next episode.
Bye, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye.